Hello there, everybody. In this video, we're going to look over some of the geometry concepts that were featured in the 5 math problems that I emailed out. And hopefully these will not be too terrible. They shouldn't be. Hopefully you've attempted them from the email that I sent, but here would be how we would solve those for any of them that you might have been confused on. Okay, so let's take the first one. In the figure above, they have this AB, this weird symbol here, BC. Well, that symbol just means perpendicular, right? So if you see, and the SAT is not going to feature that predominantly. They try to avoid confusing nomenclature, as the term goes, but that just means perpendicular. Okay, but then, if you know that something is perpendicular, you should recognize that that means forming a 90-degree angle with something else. Okay, so it says in between A and B is a right angle, all right? And it says, what is the value of x? Well, if you think about it, let's see what we can plug in. We know that this right here is 90 degrees, and we know this part here is 25, and we know this end here, A, B to C, B, C is also 90 degrees. So that means this portion of the angle right there has to be 90 minus 25, right? The whole thing is 90 degrees, but this section of it is 25. So that gets us to, if my math is correct, 65 degrees. Okay, so that means I'm going to put it in my favorite color. Put it in pink. All right, so this right here is 65 degrees. Pause the video if that didn't make sense to you. All right, so then now that we know that this is 65, notice we have a straight line right here. And the straight line is made up of 2 different angles. We have 65 degrees and the x. Well, we know that a straight line has to be 180 degrees. So really what we have is we have x plus 65 has to be 180. Well, we can just use our basic linear algebra skills here. We can subtract 65 from both sides, and that gets us to x is equal to, let's see, 180 minus 165. I can do this. I think that's 115. Yeah. Okay, so the value of x is 115 degrees. All right. So the next problem was this one. This would hopefully be fast. We have these 2 sort of triangular-like shapes. It says the value of A is the same in both figures above. What is the value of B? Well, let's unpack this for a moment. First off, we know we have a straight line right here. So that tells us this straight line has to be 180 degrees. So we know that A plus 165 is equal to 180. Well, we can do the same thing like we did in the previous problem. We can subtract that from both sides, and that gets us to A is equal to 180 minus 165 is, I believe, 15. Yeah. Okay, so A is equal to 15. All right. Well, now, in this next thing, we know that we have A plus 3A plus B inside the triangle. Well, this is testing us another skill set. We have to remember that all triangles, all the angles add up also to the 180 degrees. So we switch up colors a little bit. So that means we have A plus 3A plus B has to be equal to 180. Well, we know what A is. We just figured out that's 15. So I'm going to swap 15 in for A everywhere I see it. So I'll put a parenthesis around it. Good habit to get into. Just do the parentheses. It avoids a lot of grief when you're dealing with negatives. So I'm just going to do that here. Plus B is equal to 180. And then, all right, well then let's see what this is. So that's just going to be 15 plus 3 times 2, that's 45, plus B is equal to 180. 15 plus 45, that's 60. So really what we get down to is we have 60 plus B is equal to 180. We can subtract 60 from both sides of the equation, right? And that leads us to B, all by itself, is equal to 180 minus 60, which is just 120. And again, just double check, were they asking for B, or were they doing something sneaky like asking, what's 2B, right? Or what's B divided by 2, or something obnoxious like that. So let's look back over the question. Yeah, it's asking just for B. So we are done. We don't have to do anything further. The answer is going to be D. Okay, but just, again, double check that, because it's very easy. We do all that work. We see B is equal to 120. There's answer D. But the actual question would say something like, what's half of B? Or what's triple B? Or, what's B plus 5? Or something absurd. Okay, so just take a moment and double check. Very good. That's it for that one. Okay, now question number 3. Another angle question. Let's look at this one. So this one says L is parallel to M. Remember, this is code. When you have two lines that are parallel to each other, it means the angles that are formed at the intersection, right? We have this line that cuts through both of them. The angle groups are going to be identical. They match. So in other words, this X here is going to match with the Z. The Y here matches with this thing matches with the Q, so on and so forth. So let's look at this. They say X is equal to 50. Well, that immediately tells us that Z also has to be equal to 50, right? Because it matches on that parallel structure there. So that means that's also equal to Z. And then, look at this. Q also has to be 50 because it's opposite to the Z value, right? See that? So that means both Q and Z, Q, Z, and X, are all equal to 50, and the question was, what is Z plus Q? Well, that should be easy. That would be 50 plus 50, and that's 100. And there's our answer. Okay? Really, this was a simple one. As long as you remember that parallel, when you have, they say that two lines are parallel and they're cut through by another line, the four angles formed, you know, that I drew very roughly with these circles are going to be the same. All right, very good. Now we're going fast through this, rather surprisingly for me. All right, so now we got a couple of circle problems. Let's try these. I might actually just pause the video here and tackle the other two circle problems in the next one, just to leave a little bit of time. I don't want to drag these on too long. All right, anyway, hang tight. We'll be back in a moment.